battle with brain cancer, and this morning Senator John McCain's body will arrive at the Arizona State Capitol right around 9:50, where he will lie in state, an honor very few have received. In fact, in the last 40 years, only 2 individuals have lied in the Arizona State Capitol Museum Rotunda: Arizona State Senator Marilyn Jarrett, that's in 2006, and Olympic gold medalist Jesse Owens, a Tucson resident. That was back in 1980. A private ceremony is going to take place this morning at 10 a.m. The public is welcome to pay their respects. That's starting at 2 p.m.
They're expecting lines out there. They were going to keep it open until around 8 o'clock this evening, but we're being told they will keep his viewing open later than that if necessary, if you're looking to get out there this evening. A few things to know if you are headed out that way: no firearms, no cameras allowed, no photography of any kind, no drones. Small bags are permitted, but we're being told there's pretty heavy security out there, so expect to be screened. You might have trouble finding some place to park. If that's the case, head to the state fairgrounds. You'll be bused to the Capitol from there. The buses begin transporting guests around noon. Also, just a heads up, we have several road closures from the mortuary to the Capitol, so make sure to plan accordingly there.
It's going to be so warm, too.
Yeah, Jefferson and Adams between 15th and 19th will be closed until as late as 11 p.m. tonight. All
right, right now we want to check in with Team 12, who is all over this story. Joe Dana and political reporter Bram Resnick, they are live outside of the state capitol. What are you guys seeing out there so far?
An especially striking image that you can't see from your vantage point: a line of Navy military members in the clean, bright white uniforms here to pay their respects to John McCain, who was a Navy man in every way. It was part of his family heritage. And today we're saying goodbye to a military hero, a senator, and just a stalwart member of this community. Bram, not just military members here, but we're expecting leaders around the state who also pay their respects. We know Governor Doug Ducey, former Senator John Kyle, Senator Jeff Flake. They'll all have a part in today's events, and fittingly so.
Yeah, it's going to be a relatively brief service inside the Capitol Rotunda. You know, this is a very intimate moment. A family is laying to rest one of its own, honoring one of its own, and a state is honoring one of its own, which makes it a very big historic moment. I think that might get lost in what's happening this year, this week. John McCain was a historic figure. He made Arizona bigger all over the world. It was always John McCain of Arizona, and I know there are lots of folks out there, a lot of the people of Arizona who, Republican, Democrat, unaffiliated, don't really care, who, you know, for whom John McCain was the only senator they knew. He has been a president. If you're under the age of 50 or 55, John McCain is really all you. And there's a big connection there, Joe.
Yeah, growing up here in Arizona, right? John McCain was just one of those names that you knew and respected. The late senator's body will rest here at the Copper Dome Rotunda at the old state capitol building. A bit of history there. A private ceremony is planned at 10 a.m. And then there will be a benediction and some speakers, but there are some details we just haven't been made aware of yet. I ran into someone who interned for Senator McCain. He's here with his son in 1986. And what he said, I think, says a lot about what we are likely to hear today. He says when he was an intern for Senator McCain, he'll remember 2 things: his temper and his integrity. That says so much, doesn't it?
It says a lot. And the other thing it says a lot, McCain's former staffers, interns, and he's had countless staffers. They call themselves Hotel California. You can check out, but you could never leave. And having covered the senator for about 15 years now, as I look around, I see people who may have left his office years ago. They are all reuniting for this one last send-off here today to give their boss, the old man, as a lot of them call him, the respect and honor he has earned.
He was known for using the phrase march or die with his staff members in his office. He really did work tirelessly, and he was known for his good humor. You know, just last night, Congresswoman Martha McSally said during her primary victory speech that when John McCain introduced her, he noted that unlike him, her time in the Air Force included an equal number of takeoffs and landings. He was willing to sort of make light of the idea that he wrecked a couple of planes and was shot down in the war. I'm sure we'll be hearing some stories about the man, the father, the guy with always a quip and something funny to say.
Yeah, and one thing I'd pay attention to as the next several days unfold is the pallbearers. It says a lot about the man when you look at the diversity of the pallbearers, the people who will be, carrying him to his final resting place. You have athletes, you have billionaires, you have a man who was almost killed by Vladimir Putin. He's going to be one of the pallbearers. John McCain and his family thought this through very carefully. And one more pallbearer I want to note, somebody who's going to be speaking today, former member of Congress, Jim Colby. Something that isn't so well known about John McCain is he was a very tolerant man. And Jim Colby was our first, at least publicly, gay congressman to come out. And John McCain stood by him for years. He stood by him always. He gave an interview to an LGBT newspaper explaining why he stood by Jim Colby, and was just simply out of tolerance, out of humanity.
Yeah, in fact, he said that McCain had a conversation with him just before he came out, and he assured him that they were close friends, would remain close friends. Colby said he was intensely loyal to people that he liked, and he was intensely loyal to me. That was a difficult and complicated time, too, because you had politics going on that were considered anti-LGBTQ. And John McCain's legacy is complicated on that. Yeah. People will acknowledge. But Jim Colby did feel like John McCain stood by him during that tough time. We understand we're seeing the hearse right now from Sky 12 as this procession may start to make its way towards the Capitol.
Yeah, and what you're going to see behind us, perhaps in just a few minutes, we're expecting the hearse to pull up in front of the Capitol, the casket to be brought into the Capitol Rotunda, and the McCain family to arrive at about the same time and make their way into the Capitol Rotunda.
A very touching message on Twitter yesterday came from Jack McCain, one of John McCain's son. He wrote this, and for anyone in the military and in the Navy, they would know these phrases just like this. But he said, "Call the ball, old man. Green deck for landing. Conditions, CAVU, C-A-V-U." So those are Navy references. Calling the ball means a request to show the lights on an aircraft carrier. Green deck means it's clear to land. CAVU is an acronym meaning ceiling and visibility unlimited. Slang to describe something desirable or sought after. So you had Jack McCain there, who has followed in his father and grandfather's footsteps, who joined the Navy. In his own way, I guess, sort of welcoming his dad home.
Yeah, Jack is on active duty. We expect to see him here today, though, or at some point in the next few days. I believe he's here now. So we're going to pause here for a moment and send it back to the studio.
Bram and Joe, quick question for you. More so if you know anything about the National Guard casket team, which will carry McCain's casket once he arrives there at the Rotunda. What does that group consist of?
We actually were just asking about that, and we're waiting to get more details. And when we get them, we'll bring them to you, because there's a lot of pomp and circumstance and ceremonial, I guess, details that we'll be seeing, so we'll definitely bring you the details as we get them.
I believe they're with our local National Guard unit. They're going to be the pallbearers for this ceremony. No other pallbearers are listed for this ceremony.
All right, sounds good. We're going to be checking back in with Joe and Bram. And by the way, you at home watching right now, if you have questions about the ceremony or even questions about Senator John McCain, please text them to us, 602-444-1212. Now, we do want to see people who are turning out at the state capitol. We're going to send it over to another one of our reporters, Jeremy Chochola, this morning, who is live out there. Jeremy, what are you seeing? Do you see any lines developing or people walking by getting ready to see Senator John McCain?
Yeah, there's a very, solemn air here around the Capitol, and there are a few members from the community here who are just now starting to show up. They're kind of watching with their eyes, taking in the sights, and it's quite a scene behind me here. You can see the formality, and you can just feel how formal it's going to be this afternoon and this morning. I want to bring in a Mr. Tom Barrow. Tom Barrow, you're from the community here. You're 65 years old now. You've been watching McCain's career for a very long time. I saw you sitting on the ledge there, and I saw your eyes kind of scoping out the scene here. What's going through your mind this morning, Tom?
Well, it's a very nice, honorable scene for the senator, and I just came down to pay my respects to the man. The accolades he's getting for, service to his country and a family man and so forth and so on, to go beyond that, So I just wanted to come down and see the color guard, the honor guard, and just pay my respects.
Yeah. You've been in this community for a very long time.
Moved here in 1968.
Yeah, and so you followed McCain's career from the beginning. Then.
Correct, and irregardless of your politics. He was just a good man all the way around.
What do you hope to take away from your visit here, Tom?
Just the fact that I came to show some respect and keep it in my memory.
Good for you. Great.
Thank you.
Well, many people feel like the way you do, so I appreciate you sharing your story and coming down here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you very much for sharing your story, Tom. I appreciate it. Tom, you have a good day. So there's going to be a lot of people like Tom coming down here. I think there's much to be said about the inherent, almost, human psychological need for people to come down here and have like this visual kind of taking in, this visual, tangible touching of this scene here. So I think we're going to see a lot of that from the public here today. And it's quite clear, based on the barricades that they have set up around the Capitol, the scene around here, the security, the people, the amount of people in uniform behind us here, I think it's quite clear to say, without a doubt, that McCain left quite a footprint upon Arizona and this community, and we're going to see that community come out today.
I think, Jeremy, I've heard from almost every single person that we've interviewed, no matter what my policies were, I may have not agreed with the guy, but, you always get that but I respected him, or but I, was behind him on some of the issues. I just think that's so interesting how he was able to appeal to so many people, regardless of what side of the aisle they were on.
We saw the ADOT sign this morning, country first, John McCain, rest in peace. Jeremy, I had a question about just the schematics out there. Have they set up barricades? Are they starting to usher people in a certain direction? Because we're expecting thousands to show up there to pay their respects today.
Yeah, I just flew in here, a couple days ago, and so hopefully I have my directions set on the south end of the Capitol here. It looks like they have a tent that's going to be protecting the public from the sun, and the public's going to line under those tents over there, and that's where the public is going to line up. There's not that many people over there, but that's where the public lineup is over there, and so we can anticipate there's going to be hundreds, perhaps thousands of people lining up over there at that event, or at that part of the event over there. But over here in front of the Capitol, you have law enforcement, and I can bet we'll probably have representatives from every law enforcement agency, state law enforcement agencies here in Arizona. I think what's remarkable about this is that just the visuals of all of this, of what it looks like now. Things are, it's beautiful. You see the flags, you see the Arizona flag. You see people in their military dress. It's quiet, it's solemn, it's formal. There's really an air of respect here, and you can really feel it. So I think this is going to be one for the history books here in Arizona, and not only here in Arizona, but for the country too. I think this is really something to be here.
Once that procession begins, we're expecting veterans, military, law enforcement, fire, first responders to line the Capitol Plaza there for the procession as they bring Senator McCain's casket in. If you're just joining us and you'd like to get out to the Capitol to pay your respects, you can park at the state fairgrounds. They're beginning to bus civilians out there around noon today, so you don't have to worry about parking downtown.
Because really parking downtown, there are not a lot of options, and there's a lot of street closures that are going on too, so it gets a little bit confusing. I think your safest bet, either an Uber or going to the Arizona State Fairgrounds and then busting in. But boy, am I happy to see those tents, because we've been worried about that, looking at the temperatures for today, about how hot it's going to get out there. Bring water. Jimmy Q says bring an umbrella, a dark one perhaps. Maybe that would be the best option for you. So
the emotional tributes are already pouring in for those who didn't know Senator McCain at all, to those who knew him very, very well. South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham was fighting back tears this morning when he was live on the Today Show. Yesterday on the Senate floor, he described McCain as a political giant who understood not only the importance of fighting and not giving up, but also being humble and learning from defeats and mistakes.
I cry for a man who had honor and always was willing to admit to his imperfection. So to those who are striving as a young person, remember John McCain. He failed a lot, but he never quit. My name is Graham, not McCain. But I feel like a McCain.
Senator McCain's seat in the Senate chamber draped in black with white flowers on his desk as his colleagues and longtime friends honor his life.
And joining us now, we have former John McCain staffer and Republican consultant Doug Cole. Doug, first of all, thank you so much for joining us this morning. You know, it's funny talking to you about your history with the McCains. You started with him back in 1984, probably one of the earliest that ever worked on his staff.
Right. John McCain was first elected in 1982. He replaced the House Minority Leader, John Rhodes, who had replaced Gerald Ford when Gerald Ford was chosen as Nixon's vice president after Spiro Agnew had to resign. So John McCain was filling huge seats in 1982. I was at American University in D.C. I'm a fourth-generation Arizonan, but I was lucky enough to be in the press office working with Victoria Clark for John McCain at a very interesting time in his career.
You had some really hilarious things to say about working with John McCain. If he wasn't sarcastic towards you, you were in trouble.
That's correct. That's correct. He always referred to, "Hey, pal," and if you were in a public event, he would say, "Oh, this is my pal Doug. He just got out from work release. Don't mind him." and it would take people aback, you know. Right. Or you'd say, "Oh, he just got out of Betty Ford. Doesn't he look good?" He had quite a sense of humor.
Yeah. Doug, you said that Bram might have borrowed that Hotel California line from you.
Did.
Can you tell us what it was like to work in Hotel California?
Well, here's the deal. Almost every Republican operative, I'm 56 years old.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody in my generation and younger, they got their start with John McCain. I mean, I was lucky enough to start when he was in the U.S. House of Representatives for the 4 years that he was there, before he moved on to the Senate in '86, replacing Barry Goldwater. But during the course of that 35-year career in Congress, there are hundreds, thousands of young men and women who rolled through the McCain organization, not only in his senatorial, in his House operations, but his 2 presidential campaigns.
Which you were on both of those.
That's correct.
Can you talk to us about how those campaigns went, first in 2000 and then coming back in 2008? What was that like? I can't imagine the stress, but also when you would watch McCain, the differences between the two, between the 2000 run and the 2008 run. Yeah,
they were 2 completely different campaigns. The 2000 campaign was an insurgent campaign.
Yeah.
You know, the front runner was George, the anointed one, the George W. Bush. Right. And when McCain won in New Hampshire, that just rocked the political world, and rolled on with winning some other ones. But you know, it all came to a very abrupt stop in South Carolina, and we can go into that. That was a historic campaign there down in the deep South. But that was more of you know, we're underdog, no way we were going to win, and he did. And one man, you know, from going to door, and he lived in New Hampshire. I mean, John McCain can tell you every coffee shop, he can tell you every church, he can tell you every VFW hall in the state of New Hampshire. At one point, we thought he was the governor of New Hampshire. Sure. He spent so much time there, and then if you know, fast forward to 2008, that was he was the one to beat. Yeah. And went on and came out of the National Convention in St. Paul with a lead, and then the economy crashed. And that was the end of it.
Do you think his strength as a politician was that stick-to-itiveness, that grassroots, that knock on your door, show up at your coffee shop kind of mentality?
Absolutely, Paul. He really invented that get on the bus and drive the bus until there's no more diesel in the bus.
Mm-hmm. You said you were in some of those shots of the bus just to frame the video.
Well, that was
the train in Mesa.
Yeah, that was in 1986 when he announced his Goldwater run.
Oh my gosh!
The big kickoff was at the old Mesa train depot, and they rented a train. And Jay Smith was his political consultant, doing his commercials. We had a big kickoff, and that baby he was holding was Megan. She had just been born.
Can you believe that?
She had just been born. And yeah, it was quite the event in 1986, watching a train. You know, we don't see passenger trains in Arizona much.
We got to bring that back.
John McCain, yeah.
You know what, Doug? I think everyone has a John McCain story. A time maybe they've seen him, or they've brushed shoulders with him, or something. You know, I even have one. But you really knew this guy. You knew him probably at his lowest lows and highest highs. What are some of your takeaways, things that you want people to remember about this man that you followed and that you helped in his career?
Well, I would say he was a multi-dimensional individual. You really had to get to know him. He could be very, very sarcastic. He could be very funny, but then when it was time to be serious and firm, so he that whole spectrum of personalities, and you got to get to know him. I remember, Emma, one time, it was in 2010, we were campaigning for one of his re-elects, and I was working with Governor Jan Brewer at the time, and we put Governor Brewer and John McCain and myself and his staffer, Brooke Buchanan, on a plane, and we flew around the state. We went everywhere for weeks on end in the primary, and he could be in the plane talking about what a scoundrel and a scumbag Vladimir Putin is, and going on, you know, what's going on with Georgia and the Ukraine, etc. And then the next minute, he's looking over Brooke Buchanan, the staffer for him, say, "Hey, Brooke, I just saw this tweet from Snooki on Jersey Shore." I mean, that's how not breaking a cadence in his conversation at all. That was John McCain.
Something I think is so telling of the man that he was is what's going to happen at his funeral coming up on Saturday. He's having former President Barack Obama and former President George W. Bush speak.
Right.
Where do you think that choice came from? And of course, you were there.
He chose it.
So why do you think that he chose that? Because you were there during both of those different presidential candidates. What did he have to say about those men, and why do you think he wanted them to speak at the funeral?
Well, you know, I think, let's go to when he ran against Obama. He respected Senator Obama, and there's that famous clip, I think up in Wisconsin or Michigan, with the lady says, you know, he's an Arab, and he says, "No, ma'am, he's not. He's an American. He's a great family man." That was John McCain. I think John McCain wanted to show in today's political environment, which we are all very aware of, that we all need to be, even though you can disagree with somebody, and they may have been an opponent of yours, we still are Americans first. And I think that he called them both, according to all media reports, he called them both and asked them to do that, along with Joe Biden. Right. Along with Joe Biden. You know, Joe Biden, he's known Joe Biden before McCain came to Arizona and was elected in '82. He was the Senate Naval Liaison in Congress. So he was the head Navy officer in Congress. So anytime there was a CODEL, which is a congressional delegation trip, military officers go with him. So John McCain, after he got back into the service after his recovery from being a prisoner of war, lived in the Senate. So all these huge figures in U.S. history, Senator Cohn from Maine, Senator Hart from Colorado, Joe Biden from Delaware, and the list goes on and on and on. Senator Scoop Jackson from Washington, they were all personal friends of John McCain. And so he knew them very well. So going to Joe Biden was a natural choice.
You said this just a moment ago, and we referenced it a little earlier in our breaking news coverage. This sign that ADOT has up over the freeway today, "Country First, Rest in Peace, Senator McCain." And I think it speaks volumes the way that he was able to cross the political aisle and unify the country, even in times where unity was not a popular opinion to have. Can you explain to us the hole that he's leaving behind here? Bram had said it earlier, anyone under the age of 50 in the state of Arizona only knows Senator McCain. Yeah. And now we're entering kind of a new frontier here where we're about to have somebody that doesn't quite fill the shoes that John McCain is leaving behind, no matter who it ends up being.
Well, and let me just put it to this way, Paul and Emma. Arizona became a state 106 years ago in 1912, okay? We had, obviously, since we were just entering the Union, 2 freshman senators. Come January of 2019, we will have 2 freshman senators again.
Can you believe that?
That is unbelievable. This is a state that, besides Senator McCain and Senator Flake, has only had 9 other senators.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, because our senators, you know, John McCain, 30 years, Barry Goldwater, 35 years, Barry Goldwater, 30 years in the Senate, and then, of course, the famous Carl Hayden, who served for 56 years in Congress. And he was the Senate President Pro Tem for 12 of those years. These are men who were Minority Leader. Ernest McFarland, another famous senator from Arizona, he was the Majority Leader in the Senate before LBJ.
Wow.
You know, Carl Hayden was probably the most powerful man in Congress because of his longevity. Not only was the President Pro Tem, but he also was the Appropriations Chairman. That's why we have all these wonderful federal projects in Arizona.
That's right.
And of course, Barry Goldwater. It goes without saying, Barry Goldwater.
We have to say thank you so much for this insight and really being able to understand the man that everyone's saying goodbye to this week. Thank you so much for your time. Doug Cole.
Former McCain staffer and close personal friend of the senator. Let's go back out live to the state capitol right now, where Joe Dana and Bram Resnick are still standing by, awaiting the motorcade and the arrival of Senator McCain's body to the rotunda there. Gentlemen, what's the scene like? Looks like you're joined by NBC correspondent Jay Gray.
That's right. You know, John McCain considered it a privilege to have run for president. He even called it a privilege to give his concession speech. He believed that much in just the process of our democracy. And actually, both Bram and Jay have been with McCain on his presidential runs. A lot of memories there about John McCain, the campaigner.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's amazing to travel with the man. Just you go into it with such a reputation. This is a war hero. This is a guy who's the lion of the Senate. And you see a much different guy when you spend some time with him on the road, Bram. I mean, you would agree with that.
So let's talk about 2000. The first run, the Straight Talk Express, was something we had never seen before in presidential politics, although there were whistle stops, but never with a dozen reporters sitting around you. Take us inside the Straight Talk Express. What was that like?
No, and would any candidate nowadays have the guts to do that? I don't think so. It was an amazing adventure, is what I've called it over the last couple of days, just because he was always there and he was always present. He was a rebel at the time as far as presidential politics are concerned, and really trying to make his mark, really pushing a much different campaign, as we've talked about, than the latter one. He would talk and talk, as you said, and we would ask him any question we could. A lot of times some of the questions were dismissed. They just weren't pertinent according to him, and it wasn't important to talk about. But he would never shy away from sitting there and answering questions continually until, like you've said, we ran out of questions, and he would continue to talk. It was really neat.
So it looked like a lot of fun for the reporters, but he could be pretty tough too on reporters, couldn't he? Did you see that side of him?
No question. He was very tough, always fair, but very tough. He never really suffered fools very lightly at all. I think that he did his job there, which was to get our attention and to get his message out. He made sure it was his message, not anything that we wanted to direct.
And you mentioned things changed in 2008. He was a different kind of candidate. How was he different?
Very much so. He was an establishment. He was the guy with the backing, the money, and the one who really wanted to make sure that he appeased those who were going to support this presidential run. Not that he changed himself, but he changed his demeanor dramatically.
Okay, I just want to let our viewers know that former Governor Jan Brewer has just arrived at the Capitol Rotunda. If you listen to our coverage over the weekend on Saturday when we spoke to her, she was really broken up about the senator's death. It was really tough. And how do you sense, what kind of impact will this have on the country, John McCain's absence on the stage?
I think it's interesting in a couple of ways. First of all, the state's going to start with 2 new senators, which is going to be a dramatic change from someone who ran that Senate in a sense, and now to going to 2 freshman senators is going to be a big change, and I frankly think kind of difficult for Arizona in the early going. But I think there will be a kind of ingrained respect because of what John McCain meant, not only to the state but to the country, and so I think it's going to be a tough go, but I think it's a go that he has paved the way for, certainly, and it's interesting to see how so many people on both sides of the aisle, and I know you guys have talked about this for days, but it's still fascinating to me how many people from both political sides, from every walk of life, are turning out to say, this was a guy that I'd want my son to be like this guy. I support this guy. Didn't always agree with him, but boy, what a hero.
And he had a conviction that both sides could work together. This is a guy who traveled the country with Russ Feingold, a Democrat,
right.
trying to convince the American people about the influence of money in politics to pass campaign finance reform. There's something, I think, very altruistic there that says a lot about John McCain.
It's interesting because a lot of people say, oh, there's never going to be another John McCain. Well, there never was a John McCain. John McCain was his own political being. He wasn't like anyone else, so to say there won't be another one like him, probably not. Not that there won't be somebody that comes along that crosses both sides of the aisle, but not the way John McCain did it.
All right, Jay Gray, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again. And we'll send it back to you.
Gentlemen, while you have Jay standing there, we just got done speaking with Doug Cole, former McCain staffer who knew John very, very well. I'm sure Jay has had some sort of interaction with McCain over the years. I'm curious to hear if he has that quintessential John McCain story, that one interaction that really stood out and sort of personified the senator as the man that he was.
It is, but it's not. It has more, unfortunately, to do with me than it does John McCain. I can remember getting on the Straight Talk Express and scared to death, to be real honest, a young reporter, and he was an icon. And I remember asking my first question on the train and immediately saying, sorry for asking.
I knew Jay would have a good story.
That's not how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, right. I was tough back then, but he was very good. He said, no, nothing to be sorry about. We can talk about whatever you'd like, and then he proceeded to tell me why it was a stupid question. But it was great, and that's the way the guy was. He was very tough, very straightforward. But he could be funny. He was always pleasant. It was really a neat experience.
Wow.
Well, yeah, he once told a reporter just last year, he said, I think you're a jerk. And he said some other things to the reporter, but then he said, I respect what you do.
Right.
And I think that says a lot about John McCain's relationship with the media.
Yeah. Didn't like us, but knew we needed to be around.
Yeah.
It seemed like he just reveled in keeping you on your toes, Jay
Absolutely.
Gray.
I can't believe you were on the Straight Talk Express. I didn't know that about you.
I'm an old guy. I'm old.
I forget that too.
Golly, guys,
it's all
thank you very much for joining us again this morning. We want to toss it out right now to our reporter Jeremy Hohola, who's standing by where the civilians will be able to come out and see John McCain. I believe that starts at noon today. Is that right?
Well, that's when they're going to be busing people over. You won't be able to actually see him until 2 p.m. So we do have a little bit of time to wait here, but sending it over to Jeremy. Jeremy, you seen more people showing up?
Yeah, as the day progresses here, I think we're going to see a lot of people. And, when you've had a long, storied career like McCain has, over decades, there are thousands of people who've touched that career. And one of them is a man here by the name of Joe Friedman. Joe Friedman, you were an intern in McCain's office in the very early days, and now you're here today. It must be something for you, Joe, to come down here and see all of this.
It's really something, and it's really good to see all these people, and I know it's going to get larger during the day. John McCain was an honorable man from the beginning till the end. I'm just glad that I was there at the beginning. I was a student at Arizona State, and I went there and got interviewed by Grant Woods, who brought me on, and got to meet a lot of cool people while I was there who are still involved in politics, who I hope to see today.
Yeah. So what was it like in those early days? And I'm assuming you've probably had encounters with McCain since those early days as your time as an intern.
That's correct. The early days were interesting. Again, it was an office full of rock stars, people who went on to large political careers. But at the same time, McCain and I, there was a time when his car broke down, and they said, quick, John needs a ride over to the Kiwanis in Mesa or something like that. So we jumped in my little Datsun B210, and we drove to Mesa on I-60, and I almost crashed the car, and he was white-knuckled, and he said, Joe, both of our careers almost ended today, and I'll never forget that. He was white-knuckled, but he never drove with me again.
That's a remarkable story. You could have changed the course of this country, but thankfully that you guys ended up safe. Joe, what do you hope to take away from your visit here today?
I hope to take away a sense of fulfillment, that I've been there since the beginning. This is the end. This is closure. Again, you asked me earlier if I'd run into John over the years. I have. He never forgot my name. He never forgot who I was. And I hope to take away closure today.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Joe, so much for spending your time with us today, and thank you for sharing your story. I hope you're a safer driver these days.
Maybe. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So there you have it. I mean, you have these remarkable anecdotes that you hear from people who are coming down here, and everybody I've talked to, I've only been in Arizona for the past several days, everybody I've talked to that I've encountered has this funny little anecdotal story about John McCain, and it's this human story. Yesterday I interviewed Marshall Trimble, the state historian, and he had tons of little tiny stories, and they always involve these little golden nuggets of humor, these kind of moments of levity with John McCain. And I think it's much to be said that the senator was seen as someone who was human, who was down to earth, who kind of carried this jovial, down-to-earth vibe. And we're seeing that reflected today in these stories that we're hearing from people today. So it's going to be quite remarkable to talk to more people as they line up here this morning, this afternoon, guys.
Jeremy, thank you very much. If you'd like to go pay your respects to the senator, he'll be in the Rotunda lying in state, open to the public from 2 until 8 p.m. They may extend those hours as need be.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to send it over to Jen Wall, who is live outside of the mortuary right now. Jen, what are you seeing? What are you expecting as we're getting closer to McCain's body leaving there and coming downtown?
Well, good morning to you both. There are several people out here paying their respects to McCain. They know they can't make it to the Capitol today, but they still wanted to be a part of this experience and honor someone who's done so much for Arizona and our nation. So I'll step out of the way here so you can kind of get a look at what's going on. We don't have movement quite yet, but we do have several DPS officers out here, and they've just been getting things ready. They've been driving around the streets here, 7th Avenue and Bethany Home Road, and just kind of making sure that everything is set to go for Senator McCain's departure from this mortuary all the way to the Capitol. And so you can see that there's a man with a flag and he's waving it proudly. So much patriotism out here just for Arizona and the country. We do have Sky 12 up above showing aerials here of everything that is going on. We have folks lining the streets, and I've been able to talk with several of them, and they just have great stories of Senator McCain. One woman was telling me that she went to Mass on Saturday night at 4:30, and she just felt compelled to pray for the senator because she knew he wasn't doing well. And she said at the end of Mass, she found out that he had passed away, and she was just so touched by that, knowing that he went and that he was no longer in pain, even though Arizona, the nation, and his family will dearly miss him. So what we're expecting today is to see the senator's motorcade here eventually leave. We believe they'll be heading westbound, but we're not exactly sure yet. It looks like they are lining up now, which you can see from Sky 12, on their way to the state capitol where he will lie in state. And you've been hearing everyone say that all morning long. There have been so many tributes pouring in here for the senator, the motorcade, as his body has been here since Saturday night. We've been talking with local businesses who have just been so amazing, opening up their parking lots to us, to the news teams, to be able to cover this and just help honor Senator McCain because he has done so much for Arizona and this nation. So as these tributes do continue throughout the day today, we will follow his motorcade as it heads to the Capitol. And we obviously expect everything to kick off around 9:50 in the morning.
All right, Jen. Yes, still got a good 10 minutes until we're expecting some movement from there. We want to get you up over Sky 12 just to kind of get a look of what we are expecting. A pretty large motorcade. You know, if we remember when they brought his body down from his ranch. I mean, my goodness, what a motorcade that was. And then to bring his body over to the state capitol. So things won't really get going for another 10 minutes or so is what we are expecting. At 10 o'clock, there will be a private ceremony that's happening in the rotunda of the Arizona State Capitol. Like we said, 10 a.m. we'll be hearing remarks from Senator John Kyle, Governor Doug Ducey, a presentation of a wreath by Congressman Jim Colby, and a benediction by Senator Jeff Flake. The
Duceys will greet Cindy McCain and family once the hearse arrives at the state capitol. We're expecting an arrival time of around 9:50 a.m., so just over 10 minutes from now. We're going to keep it up here on Sky 12 until that motorcade departs the mortuary where we just heard from Jen a moment ago. His casket is expected to be carried in by the Arizona National Guard casket team. We spoke to Joe and Bram, who are still trying to figure out exactly what that group is comprised of, but we are expecting a huge turnout from veterans, military, and other law enforcement lining the Capitol Plaza there for the procession once the body of Senator McCain arrives.
So many people want to be part of this, and you see so many people in uniform who are out there this morning. And you know what? You're invited to be part of it too. You can go and see McCain's body starting at 2 o'clock. Now, the original idea was that it would start at 2 and around 8 o'clock. However, they are saying if there are people who are still out there who haven't had their chance to pay their final respects, they will extend that time. I even heard Mike Gonzalez say that he heard from someone maybe even until midnight, however long it takes for the people of our state and across the nation to come out and to pay their final respects.
If you are planning to head out, there's a few things you need to know before you go. There will be some road closures, most notably Jefferson and Adams shut down between 15th and 19th Avenues. That closure expected to stay in place until around 11 p.m. tonight. So even if you aren't headed out to see Senator McCain in the rotunda, you might want to be aware of that if you're anywhere downtown. And if you are going out to the Capitol, there will be no firearms allowed at the viewing. If you do have a firearm on you, we're told there will be gun lockers available for temporary storage. You will be screened by security. We saw this morning morning on 12 today. A very heavy security presence out there at the Capitol. No cameras, no photography, no drone operation. However, you can bring a small bag out there with essentials. We talked to James Quinones this morning on 12 today, recommending you bring an umbrella, especially if there's not enough room under the tent that Jeremy showed us a little bit ago.
Right. It is going to be hot. We're expecting 104 degrees today. You stand out there even for 30 minutes and you're already sweating. So just plan ahead. If you are coming, please do. I mean, it's a great opportunity. However, you need to be smart when you're on your way down. Bring an umbrella. That's a good option. Bring lots of water. It's going to be a long day out there. They are expecting thousands of people. You did mention, right, that people can park at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. Be bussed over starting at noon is when they're going to start those buses. That's still 2 hours before they're going to open it up to the public. So it gives you plenty of time to make your way down here if you get over to the Arizona State Fairgrounds and take the buses. Another good option, taxi, Uber. Parking downtown is not going to be the easiest for you.
This is a tremendous honor for Senator McCain to lie in state at the Arizona State Capitol. Some 30-odd individuals ever in the history of the state of Arizona have been allowed that opportunity. He will be the third since 1980. Gold medalist Jesse Owens lied in state back in 1980. State Senator Marilyn Jarrett back in 2006. But this just goes to show the depth and the breadth of the impact that Senator McCain had over the course of nearly 6 decades of serving the United States of America.
So this is just the first day of memorial services that you are going to expect throughout the rest of the week. Tomorrow, he will have his big memorial service where we're going to be live there all day tomorrow. The church, I can't remember the name of it.
The North Phoenix Baptist Church.
North Phoenix Baptist Church. And now we are live inside of the state capitol where the small private ceremony will be taking place. Right around 10 a.m. is when they're expecting that to start.
Governor Doug Ducey is in attendance there right now. His wife Angela expected to greet Cindy McCain and the family once the hearse does arrive there at the state capitol. This is a pool photographer that you're looking at here. Space is limited inside the state capitol right here. That won't be the case at North Phoenix Baptist Church tomorrow, though. They're adding about 1,000 seats, which will be available to the public there, celebrating the life of Senator McCain alongside his family and friends.
We have Jan Brewer there, along with Janet Napolitano is there as well. Everyone waiting for the procession to begin.
And it looks like that's the case right now. You're looking live. Our breaking news coverage up over the funeral procession. John McCain's body headed out in that motorcade right there on their way to the Arizona State Capitol.
From this vantage point, we can't exactly tell which road they are taking, but if you are in the area, you obviously know there's going to be some rolling closures as they make their way down to the state capitol. Not too long of a drive. The mortuary right there at 7th Avenue.
They're on
Bethany
7th Avenue right now, heading south from Glendale. It looks like that's a relatively direct route over to the Capitol.
Yeah, it might be the smartest when it comes to Phoenix traffic, but obviously they're able to block everything off. So again, making their way down, let's give you an idea of what's happening in this private ceremony. It's going to be happening in the rotunda of the Arizona State Capitol. You just saw it there. Janet Napolitano was there. Of course, Governor Doug Ducey. Jan Brewer is in attendance as well. We will have McCain's family represented in there. Invocation by Father Edward A. Reese. Remarks by Senator John Kyle, followed by Governor of wreath. That will be happening by Congressman Jim Colby, and then the benediction by Senator Jeff Flake. Now, if you are wanting to come and pay your respects, cannot get in until 2 p.m. That is when they're going to open it up to the public. And again, they're going to keep it open for pretty much as long as it takes.
Senator McCain moved an awful lot during his childhood, but we've heard, especially over the last few days, just how much he loved the state of Arizona. Early in life, he never really spent any significant time anywhere except for here in the state. Once he was kept as a prisoner of war in North Vietnam and moved to Arizona, he said he was, quote, captivated by the beauty of the state and the pioneering spirit of its citizens. And I think we're seeing that already today, just how much his citizens appreciate him just back. You saw people lined up behind Jen Wall's live shot at the mortuary. You're seeing them already gathering at the state capitol, even though the public is not allowed to see Senator McCain until 2 o'clock today.
Oh, it looks like they are driving by the mortuary right now, and there you see the hearse with Senator John McCain's body inside.
Flanked by 5 motorcycles there, joining up with the rest of the procession already in progress.
So once he does arrive downtown, McCain's casket will be carried by the Arizona National Guard casket team to the Arizona State Capitol Rotunda. And you're going to see a huge presence. We have Arizona veterans, military, law enforcement, fire, and first responders. They're going to line both sides of the Capitol Plaza for the procession. And again, like we mentioned, the private ceremony will start right around 10 a.m. Take a look at this. Wow.
People pouring out to take a picture of the motorcade as it heads by. You mentioned the Arizona National Guard casket team carrying Senator McCain in today. Now, don't confuse that with the pallbearers who will be there at his service at the Baptist Church tomorrow. Right. Those pallbearers, you may have heard some of the names come out over the last few days, including some notable Arizona athletes. Shane Doan, the former Phoenix Coyote, Arizona Coyote. Luis Gonzalez, former World Series winner, the Diamondbacks. You know, we're expecting to hear from Larry Fitzgerald tomorrow, the Arizona Cardinals wide receiver, to say a few words about his friend, Mr. McCain, before he goes out and plays in his final preseason game.
That's right. Taking a live look again. These are pictures from Sky 12 of the hearse as it makes its way downtown from the mortuary that was there at 7th Avenue and Bethany Home Road. Again, public can pay their respects to Senator McCain. Lies in state in the rotunda starting around 2 o'clock. That's when it will open for you. But if you do want to have the option of parking at the state fairgrounds, the buses will start taking you over right around noon.
This is where the procession will leave tomorrow to North Phoenix Baptist Church as well, from the state capitol. We're expecting them to arrive in less than 3 minutes. The ceremony begins at around 10 o'clock this morning. Arrival time set for 9:50, where Cindy and family will be met by the governor and his wife, as well as veterans and various members of the military, which will be lining the Capitol Plaza.
We're not expecting the private ceremony to be very long. Quite short, actually. There's not much on the agenda today. Today is really about us, about Arizonans having their opportunity to pay their final respects. It's about you being able to go out there and to pay your final respects to this man who has just been, I mean, he's synonymous with the state of Arizona.
Emma, you said that even you had a John McCain story. What was your John McCain story?
You know, my grandfather-in-law was good friends with Senator John McCain, and when he passed, Senator John McCain came to the funeral. And I remember when he walked in, it was the most reverent feeling. That man commanded presence and commanded respect. He didn't say one word, but when he walked in, you just felt it. You felt this power within this man. And I think something so interesting, times when he's come on 12 News and when he's talked to all of us, he just appeals to so many people, you know, regardless of who he's talking to, whether it was an intern at 12 or it was someone running the teleprompter or me or anyone. He was just, he knew his audience and he talked to you accordingly. And it was just, man, I wish I could be more like that.
I think he commands that reverence even in death. You see it from people coming out into their front yards or outside of their place of employment to just watch as they head toward the state capitol this morning.
It's something that you don't want to miss, because you will tell your kids, your grandkids, I was there or I went that day to pay my respects to Senator John McCain on his 82nd birthday.
I'm curious to hear the benediction by Senator Jeff Flake. Obviously, Jeff Flake, a very close friend, not to mention a colleague of Senator McCain's. I think, and this is just my opinion, but that Flake has modeled so much of his personality after some of the strong parts of what made John McCain so special over the last few years. I mean, McCain spent the last 2 years of his life sort of in that maverick role that we've expected him in, kind of going against the establishment in a lot of ways and putting the country before his party.
Which I think is one of the biggest takeaways from Senator John McCain's life. We're bringing back in Doug Cole, who worked, I mean, right alongside John McCain through presidency. I mean, trying to run for president, everything. I mean, you've seen this man through everything. When you look at this, how are you feeling?
Very sad.
Yeah.
Very, very sad. It's, but it's the right honor for an international icon. It's the end of an era. And it's going to be many, many decades before Arizona has somebody like him.
They're getting on the freeway right now. That's I-17 South. It looks like they've got that completely shut down. Not a car in sight outside of the hearse there and the motorcycles flanking it.
Doug, what does the next couple of days look like for you and for fellow staffers?
Well, the McCain Mafia, sometimes we refer to us, will all be heading down after this private ceremony this afternoon to pay our respect with so many thousands of other Arizonans, and then we'll be showing up at the funeral tomorrow morning. In fact, while I was offset here, I probably got 10 different text messages from former McCain staffers saying, where do you want to meet up, tomorrow morning. So we'll do that, enjoy that ceremony, and then a bunch of us will probably find a watering hole somewhere to end the day.
Do you think that's an appropriate tribute?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a naval officer, so I think he would be very pleased that we would be having a few to celebrate his life and our times, because so many of us, he started our career. I would not be sitting here talking to you and Emma and Paul, both of you today, if it wasn't for him. I was going to go in the Foreign Service, and I got a chance to work in his office, and that changed my mind on what I wanted to do with my life.
How did he do that? What was it about him that made him such a polarizing, attractive figure to you?
Well, Paul, I mean, the first day that I showed up in his office, the other intern in the press office was a young lady named Dana Meese. And her dad was the Attorney General for Ronald Reagan. And so I'm sitting there thinking to myself, if Dana Meese is interning for this freshman congressman, there's got to be something special here, because you would think that the daughter of the sitting U.S. Attorney General could get an internship anywhere. And so, Barry Goldwater stepped down, and while I was there, that's when he announced that he was going to run for Barry Goldwater's seat. And also while I was there, he was the first time he went back to Vietnam. So watching being part of having a front row seat of those two events really changed my life from a boy that grew up in Coolidge, Arizona.
You're looking live right now at pictures of the motorcade headed down to the Arizona State Capitol. That's Governor Doug Ducey alongside his wife Angela. They will be the first to greet Cindy McCain and family once the hearse arrives there. They'll walk together inside the rotunda where Senator McCain will be lying in state. A very rare honor here and befitting of the service that McCain has given to the state of Arizona.
Doug, we've talked to a lot of people who they say when they look at this week and all the events that are going on, they've never seen anything like this for someone, a senator.
No, it's unbelievable. Barry Goldwater had quite the funeral back in 1998, and then of which John McCain spoke at. And then when Carl Hayden, who, as I said earlier, had served 56 years, his funeral was at Grady Gamage in 1972 when he died, and LBJ and Barry Goldwater gave the eulogies at that funeral.
Oh, wow.
So this is appropriate for a legend like John McCain.
A lot of people also a little surprised, but not really when you know the history, that Larry Fitzgerald will be one of the people who will be speaking tomorrow. What is your take on that?
Well, if you knew John McCain, he was a sports fanatic.
Yeah.
Grant Woods tells a great story about picking John McCain up to go to either a Diamondbacks or a Coyotes game, two teams he loved dearly, along with the Cardinals. And they were heading out there, and John says, "Oh, I'm a little tired." And Grant says, "Yeah, it's been a long week for me too." And he says, "What have you been doing?" He says, "Well, I was in Afghanistan the day before yesterday, had to swing by Paris on the way back to talk to the foreign minister, go to D.C., and then I just arrived about 20 minutes ago, and I thought it'd be great to end the week with you, Grant, at a game." I mean, that's just John.
How do you
have
beat
no
that?
excuses.
How do you, I mean, we would all of us staff would just, on campaign events, of both presidential campaigns, he'd wear us out.
Oh, I can't imagine.
He was always on.
I had a chance to chat with team president Michael Bidwell of the Arizona Cardinals in Dallas on Sunday as he sort of paid his respects to Senator McCain a day after we'd heard that he'd passed. And he said he used to sit up in the booth and watch games with him, and that he was the most opinionated fan in the room. That just typical of his political career, he pulled no punches about telling you why so-and-so was bad and so-and-so was good, and who you needed to go get and who you needed to have playing in his place. He was a passionate fan.
Oh, and he knew the new statistics on every, from football to baseball to hockey. Huge hockey fan. Unbelievable. I don't know how he kept all these things straight in his mind.
No, either.
He was like Mr. Google up in his mind. I mean, he knew everything.
So for people who are at home and who are, kind of debating whether or not they should go out, why should they? Why should they go out and pay their final respects today?
Oh, this is a moment in time.
Moment in history.
Moment in history. This is something you will be able to tell your kids, your grandkids. I was there. I was there, and the pomp and circumstance and the emotions, it's all here today. So please, Arizonans, get your kids after they get home from school today and head down to the state capitol.
Looks like they're getting off the freeway there. I wanted to, you know, I think this is a hard question to ask, but I would like to hear from you on it. What will your final thoughts, your final words be to Senator John McCain today?
God bless you, Godspeed, and thank you for your service to our country and making the world a better place.
It makes you emotional, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
You're looking live right now as the hearse containing John McCain's body heads off the freeway. They're going to take Jefferson Street over to the Arizona Capitol. We're expecting them to arrive momentarily. You see Governor Doug Ducey on the right side of your screen with his wife Angela awaiting the hearse there. And that's what we were talking about earlier, that line of law enforcement, military, veterans, fire, first responders, just waiting in place right now, lining the Capitol Plaza for that procession. We are expecting his casket to be carried in by the Arizona National Guard military service team there. And the ceremony, the private ceremony within the rotunda, is expected to begin around 10 a.m. at the top of the hour.
Doug, what have you heard from the family? How are they coping? How are they moving forward?
Well, this event was planned very carefully over the last number of months with the senators' input and who we wanted to participate in this event and how it would be choreographed. A lot of coordination with Governor Ducey's office, with the National Guard, with the military. We're just seeing this is day one.
This is the beginning.
This 5 days.
5 days, and the choreography in Washington D.C. and in Annapolis is just immense. It's an incredible amount of planning. And it's just going to be a beautiful thing to send our friend off with what he deserves is this huge, wonderful ceremony today, tomorrow, the next day, ending on Sunday.
You know, I can't imagine what he's thinking right now.
That's what I was going to ask. Is
looking at this.
What would John McCain have thought about all of this?
I think he would be.
Would he make a joke?
I think he'd probably make some joke, but you know, it's appropriate. It's appropriate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not only was he a senator, but his military service and the torturous years that he spent in the Hanoi Hilton. No one can understand what that man's been through.
I can't even imagine. Even in listening to interviews, especially about that time as a POW.
Yes.
You know, you see him even hold back with some of the things.
And that 5.5 years could have been shorter. And he could have been shorter. And he chose actively not to leave.
That's right.
As soon as his father was named Admiral of the Pacific Command, they came to him and said, "We'll put you in front of the line." And he said no.
I can't believe it.
He said no.
Boy, does that say so much about his character.
Yep, it does.
Looks like that motorcade is getting closer to the Capitol here. They should be stopping just momentarily. You're looking at two different camera shots, live pictures of Sky 12 on the left and a camera we have on the ground there to the right. We were talking to Bram and Joe just a minute ago, and it looks like things are really starting to get busy down there.
Yeah, they
Not just with the veterans that are awaiting the arrival of the casket. Looks like they're pulling up right now to Governor Ducey and his wife Angela.
Governor Doug Ducey greeting the family there. And like you just saw, Arizona veterans, military, we have law enforcement, fire officials, first responders. They are on both sides of the Capitol Plaza for this procession, volunteering their time to be out there, to be part of this historic day in Arizona.
We just found out a moment ago, courtesy Bram Resnick on the ground out there, that DPS will stand guard over the casket tonight because tomorrow morning as they head out to North Phoenix Baptist Church, they'll be leaving there from the Capitol to celebrate the life of Senator McCain tomorrow morning.
We're watching now as they are awaiting the family. I'm guessing the McCain family was just closely behind. Again, private ceremony is supposed to start around 10 a.m., but you know how these things go. We'll go a little bit later than that. We will hear remarks from Governor Doug Ducey, who right now you see him right in the middle there with his wife.
It looks like such a stoic atmosphere. You know, in talking with you this morning, Doug, it seems like, you know, you said it a second ago that Senator McCain might have cracked a joke in a moment like this, especially as reverent as it seems everyone is standing around.
Yes, he always had the knack for bringing levity to a very very somber occasion, and that's just who he was. It's nice to see
Cindy
and the naval officer there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful sight at the Arizona State Capitol. And I also noticed that you had many former governors there. You had Governor Napolitano, you had former Governor Fife Symington, you had former Governor Brewer.
Yeah.
And it's just great. And there's only two other living former senators and I'm sure they'll be there. Senator DeConcini.
Let's listen in just for a quick moment here as they take McCain's casket out of the hearse there.
If you're just joining us this morning, it's 10:05. We were expecting a ceremony to begin shortly here inside the Arizona State Capitol. Senator McCain's casket has just arrived inside the rotunda where he will lie in state. If You're looking right now at Jimmy and Jack in full military regalia, sons of Senator John McCain, his wife Cindy there.
The rest of the family trailing in as well. We have Megan. Oh no, I'm sorry, Megan behind them, but Governor Doug Ducey there with his wife. Wow, what a procession as they made their way in. So the people who were bringing in McCain's casket, the Arizona National Guard casket team, are the ones who brought it in.
You can see the military precision there in the way.
Oh my goodness, could you believe that? And again, Arizona veterans, military, law enforcement, they were all lining the streets with Megan. There's Megan McCain as she made her way in. Their adopted daughter back there as well. That's Bridget, who is also sitting in there.
In Sydney.
Oh, and Sydney's
and
there
that's Andy. Well. And that's Andy McCain that just walked across, and that's Doug McCain. We
have Doug Cole join us, who's a former staffer of McCain's team. So the whole family, all the kids there, right, Doug?
All the kids are there.
Yeah. You can see Megan obviously very emotional.
If you're looking to get
loving God, see our tears for our brother, our father, our husband, our fellow citizen, our senator. Let these tears bring blooms in the desert he loved, in the country he served, and in all our hearts. Amen.
Please be seated. Governor Ducey, Governor Brewer, Governor Symington, Governor Napolitano, Representative Colby, Senator Schlatz, Senator Heller, Senator Flake, Cindy McCain, and all members of the McCain family and friends. John McCain believed in America. He believed in its people, its values, and its institutions. He said he came to this realization during his time as a POW in Vietnam. I fell in love with my country, he said, when I was a prisoner in someone else's. As a result, he dedicated his life to serve his country. When he saw challenges to its institutions or values, he fought to protect them. Thus, his efforts to rein in excess campaign expenditures and congressional earmarks, which he viewed as corrupting our values and institutions, and his insistence that battlefield detainees be treated in accordance with American law and values. In international affairs, his beliefs led Senator McCain to promote American principles of freedom and democracy for others, and in our military campaigns to support our missions and our troops. John had a keen eye for American interests and could spot dangerous adversaries a mile away. He was among the first to advocate the surge in Iraq to regain the initiative in the war there. I've been with Senator McCain all around the world, and I will tell you that he had better instincts about how and when and where to assert American power than any other leader that I've known. He had been to more countries, knew more foreign leaders, and had a better grasp of history than any other American official, including our secretaries of state. One illustration that we're all familiar with was when others were looking into Vladimir Putin's eyes with an eye of understanding him and reaching accommodation within. John, of course, said, I looked into his eyes and I saw KGB. While I believe John's greatest contribution was to American national security, we must comment a bit on Arizona interests as well. In a word, he loved his adopted state. He loved its beauty. He was committed to protecting our environment and our water and our forests. He worked throughout his career with our Native American citizens and with Arizona's veterans. He was a big champion of our many military installations. Some have disagreed with some of Senator McCain's votes on policy positions. but that should not diminish our gratitude for his service. And let's return to where I began, John's love for America and Arizona. He represented our values all over the world as Senator from Arizona, and America is stronger for his fierce defense of our values. We can be proud he was our senator. I consider it a great privilege to have served with John, and I will miss him as a friend and as a strong force for America in the world.
We've all seen the grainy video. A young man in his 30s emerges from behind the folding doors of a bus, plows forward with strength. His feet land on the ground, and he limps forward towards freedom. It's John McCain, and he's just spent 5 years as a prisoner of war, shot down, ejected from his plane, his right leg and both arms broken. He managed miraculously to save himself from drowning in the lake in which he landed, only to be captured by the North Vietnamese. No one expected John McCain to make it through the night, but as one of his fellow POWs put it, dying was not in his plan. Confined to solitude, tortured, this son and grandson of Navy admirals repeatedly refused release until every other American brother was released with him. Of all the speeches, interviews, and town hall meetings that have been played and replayed these days since John McCain has left us, it's this moment, more than any other, that can't help but stir a spirit of patriotism deep inside every American, bringing goosebumps to your arms and leaving the hair standing on the back of your neck. Because as you watch his release and learn his story, the senator's life, lessons, and wisdom take on a much more meaningful context. When John McCain called on us to serve a purpose greater than one's own self-interest, it wasn't a talking point designed to win the next election. It was how he had actually lived his life and continued to live his life. It's how he wanted us to live ours. His talk of country first wasn't simply a slogan on a yard sign. It was what John McCain had done and demonstrated over and over and over again in the Navy, through Vietnam, and all the way to his favorite battles on the floor of the United States Senate. In 2008, he electrified an arena in Minneapolis, proclaiming, "We're Americans and we never give up. We never quit. We never hide from history. We make history." Those weren't the empty words of some politician grabbing the microphone and the spotlight for a few fleeting moments. Men had followed John McCain into battle, and we knew we could do the same. This man was trusted, and he was tested, qualities in increasingly short supply. We sometimes think that politics is life and death. But John McCain knew better, because he had actually seen death and dying and tragedy. Make no mistake, he fought like hell for the causes he believed in. He plowed through election after election with the energy and focus of a warrior. But along the way, he did it with humor and humanity, and without compromising the principles he held so dear. I'd rather lose an election than lose a war. and we knew he was telling us the truth. In that way, John McCain was about more than politics. He brought us above politics. John is probably the only politician who could get us to set aside politics and come together as a state and a nation, as we have. Like many of us here in Arizona, John McCain was from somewhere else. But his spirit, service, and fierce independence ultimately helped shape the state with which he became synonymous. Almost exactly 20 years ago, John McCain delivered the eulogy at Barry Goldwater's funeral. That other great legendary Arizonan who America holds dear in its heart. Where Barry Goldwater was born in Arizona, John McCain was Arizona's favorite adopted son. Nearly 45 years old when he moved to Arizona. This is the first place, he said, where he truly found a connection. Arizona has enchanted and claimed me, he wrote. I love it so much, and I'm so grateful for the privilege of representing the state and its people. But in reality, we were the ones who were privileged. Privileged to have John McCain fighting for us. Privileged to learn from him. Privileged that when he was back home, to run into him at the movies or at a ball game or at Starbucks. Just like he was any one of us. Privileged to proudly call him a fellow Arizonan. To the rest of the world, John McCain was Arizona. When all of us here traveled and told people we were from Arizona, people knew two big things about it: John McCain and the Grand Canyon. Imagining Arizona without John McCain is like picturing an Arizona without the Grand Canyon. It's just not natural. To the woman who brought John McCain to Arizona, Cindy, thank you. The hearts and prayers of not only Angela and I, but our entire state and nation are with you and your family at this moment. Always known for your elegance, grace, and compassion, and those qualities have been on full display this past year. You are a model for us and an inspiration. Arizona loves you, Cindy McCain. To the woman that brought John McCain into this world, Mrs. McCain, Roberta, 106 years young. You raised a remarkable son, and we are truly blessed that you are among us still. When we look to you, there's no doubt where John McCain inherited his determination, resilience, and tenacity. It was built into his DNA. You see it in John's children, who carry on his spirit of service. Doug, Andy, Megan, Sydney, Jack, Jimmy, and Bridget. May God bless you and keep all of you. Your father was very proud, and so is the state of Arizona. In May, Angela and I had the great honor of visiting with John and Cindy at their cabin. Before lunch, the senator broke the ice by sharing what was weighing on his mind most of all. Breaking into a signature grin, he said, "My biggest challenge is deciding whether or not to run for re-election in 2022. Dying, as has been observed 50 years earlier, was not in his plan. John McCain was a fighter, and he called on us to fight with him for American values, for the ideals and character of a free people, for justice and opportunity for all, for each other, and for this blessed and bountiful country. None of us were ready for this. We never would have been ready for this. But John McCain often said of Americans, we never surrender. So while we grieve today as a state and as a nation, John McCain's fight for America isn't over. It's a fight all Americans are obligated to continue on his behalf. And as we march forward with the courage and resolve he would have demanded, may we take comfort in knowing in that fight, John McCain will always have our back.
Right now, you're looking at the presentation of the wreath by former Congressman Jim Colby. Just heard from Doug Cole here, who's been joining us, that they were actually former House colleagues. So good friends there. We got the wreath there, and now we're waiting for Senator Jeff Flake to offer the benediction as you take a look at the McCain family, all present.
Our Heavenly Father, we are grateful to have been gathered here today in the Arizona State Capitol to honor the life and memory of thy servant, John Sidney McCain. We are grateful for his life and for his sacrifice. Gathered in this spot, we are especially grateful that John made Arizona his home. More than 7 million of thy children have done likewise, and all of them, all of us, are grateful for John's able representation over these many years. We ask for thy Spirit to abide with us as we mourn his passing. We ask for an added measure of thy Spirit to be with John's sweet family, who have sacrificed so much for so long in sharing their loving husband and father with us for these many years. Send the Comforter, that they might be reminded that joy cometh in the morning. Now, as we go forward, let us remember thy humble servant with gladness and cheerfulness, to answer his call, to summon the better angels of our nature, to see and appreciate the humanity in our opponents, to more freely forgive, so that we might be forgiven. Of this we pray, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please stand. We have thanked God for the blessing that John McCain is and continues to be for us. Let us go now from this place in peace and comforting one another in the sure knowledge that one day we will join John in his home in heaven with his God.
hard to keep it together watching all of this. The McCain family saying their final goodbyes. That's Bridget, their adopted daughter. You're now seeing the children from Senator McCain's first wife. What a moment.
Senator McCain's casket will remain in the rotunda this evening. DPS troopers will be guarding it. If you're looking to get out there, we'll have the details of how the public can come and pay their final respects shortly.
Everyone, you're part of history right now, watching this, being part of this, saying goodbye to someone who is synonymous with the state of Arizona.
You heard Governor Ducey say it. He was 45 when he moved here, but he felt as if Arizona was calling to him and dedicated the rest of his life to making this place a better place for you, for for everyone there in attendance at the Capitol.
I know we didn't get the names out there. We want to make sure that you knew what you just saw in the private ceremony. We had the start of it there was by Father Edward A. Reese, remarks by Senator John Kyle, remarks by Governor Doug Ducey, presentation of the wreath by former Congressman Jim Colby, and then the benediction there by Senator Jeff Flake. You know, I think something to take away from some of the remarks that were made was, and I mean, you see this all over the freeways now, country first. Country first, regardless of the policies. To Senator John McCain, it was country first.
Senator John Kyle used a quote that I found particularly poignant. He said, "I fell in love with my country while I was a prisoner in someone else's." I think it's a fitting reminder of some of the things we take for granted on a day-to-day basis that you're reminded of when those things are ripped from you. And that inspired John McCain in a way that certainly made his home country a much better place.
We have Doug Cole here joining us in studio, who was a former McCain staffer. Anything that you took away from some of the comments that were made?
Well, I think it was a perfectly appropriate ceremony, simple, honorable, and I think that all the words spoken by the dignitaries will be remembered by the family, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're here for the family at this point.
Tell us a little bit about the kids. I mean, I'm sure that you know them extremely well. Tell us a little bit about the relationship that they had with their father, because I mean, you could see Meghan McCain, my goodness.
Well, I think it's well known that Meghan McCain has a very, very tight relationship with her father. That's carried on that.
Flake saying
there's a tight relationship.
Yeah,
here.
Cheryl and Jeff Flake, and this is former Congressman Jim Colby. John McCain entered the House in 1982. Congressman Colby entered in 1984. And of course, Colby served many, many years in the House while Senator McCain. And that's former Governor Fife Symington there, standing next to Governor Napolitano, and then Governor Brewer to her left.
Back to the kids for just a second.
Sure.
And their relationship with their father.
Well, I think you saw that both Jimmy and Jack in their military, you know, followed in their father's footsteps in the Department of Navy. You know, so in that branch of service, one in the Marines and one being in the Navy, and then you saw the children that John McCain, Doug, and Andy, who were from his first marriage. Carol, he had actually adopted
those boys.
In fact, Andy McCain works at Hensley and Company, which is the family business.
That's
and
right.
He's an executive there, so he's followed in Cindy's footsteps and John McCain's footsteps, because remember, John, before he became a congressman, worked at Hensley and Company.
I had this conversation with our political insider Bram Resnick about Jack and Jimmy. You know, Jimmy, who's a Marine, Jack, who's a naval officer. You know, you rarely heard Senator McCain talk about their service. Why do you think he was like that?
Well, you know, some of them were in active duty and deployed in hot wars,
right.
And you don't want to be announcing that, hey, to your enemies that John McCain's kid is out there.
It's Napolitano and Brewer paying their respect.
And that was Governor Symington, former Governor Symington before Napolitano. Yeah, you don't, you know, for security reasons. And then Sydney, his daughter with Carol, was also there, and of course Bridget, you know, John and Cindy, along with their very good friends Deb and Wes Gullett, both couples adopted children, and that's Michael Brewer there, the son of Governor Jan Brewer. They adopted 2 orphans from Mother Teresa's orphanage or organization out of Bangladesh. Nikki with the Gullits and Bridget with the McCains. Just two wonderful young ladies.
You too at home will have your opportunity to pay your final respects to Senator John McCain today. Beginning at 2 p.m. is when doors will open. They'll allow the public to pay their final respects. Plan is to go until 8 p.m., but it really just depends on the crowds and the amount of people who want to say goodbye to the senator. So they are willing to keep the doors open hours after that. DPS will be standing guard tonight over the casket of Senator John McCain.
We've heard from two of our reporters on the ground there that they won't turn anyone away. If there are lines outside of the Capitol, they'll be allowed to come in and see Senator McCain one last time.
So thankful to hear that, so thankful that they're not going to rush this, that they're really going to allow Arizonans to say their final goodbye to a man who has led this state, 6 terms in the Senate. It's truly incredible.
It's the first of 5 days of memorial services for Senator McCain. Tomorrow morning, at about the same time we began our coverage, we'll be beginning another breaking news segment here at around 9:05 when Cindy McCain and their family will arrive back at the state capitol where Senator McCain will lie in state this evening. He'll then be carried out of the Capitol by the Arizona National Guard to a hearse, and then at 9:15 a motorcade will depart on the way to the North Phoenix Baptist Church along a public route. And we're expecting the public to be out in full force, just like they were this morning when he left the mortuary. We're expecting the streets to be lined with people hoping to see Senator McCain one last time before he goes out to that memorial service at the Baptist Church.
Doug, is there anyone in there that you were surprised to see, or maybe that you were surprised who was not in attendance today?
Well, there's only 2 former U.S. senators alive in Arizona, and that's former Senator John Kyle and former Senator Dennis DeConcini, and I have yet to see former Senator DeConcini. And I think the 2 governors that are still alive would be former Governor Bruce Babbitt and former Governor Jane D. Hull. I have not seen either of them. These are McCain staffers.
Oh, okay.
And other family friends.
Doug, you might not be able to answer this, but how many staffers do you think Senator McCain has racked up over the years? Because I imagine
over 1,000.
The tree, I bet, is just
easy
enormous.
over 1,000. His longtime confidant and Chief of Staff Mark Salter, who wrote many books with John McCain. This is State Treasurer Arlene Klein here, who Governor Ducey appointed State Treasurer. We'll probably see some, and this is the Secretary of State, Michelle Reagan. And then looks like we have the Attorney General, Mark Brenovich, coming up next.
Thank goodness for your eyes, because I am squinting to try and see as much as I can. So please go on and help us so
Great
much.
Contacts is all it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I have bad eyes. You guys just have very good contacts. And this is Speaker of the House, J.D. Mesnard from Chandler. And then behind him would be the Arizona State Senate President, Steve Yarbrough, also from Chandler, paying their respects. What a somber moment. What a somber moment.
You said that you've been in contact with some of the staffers who served time with you. What are they saying?
Tomorrow, and hopefully get to sit next to each other, and then probably head out and celebrate his life. As he wouldn't want us to be sad, want us to be happy, and a lot of us referred to him as the old geezer. The old geezer would want us to be happy.
Did you have a chance to chat with Senator McCain after his brain cancer diagnosis? When was the last time you spoke to him? And what was that
It's probably been about a year.
Okay.
It's probably been about a year, and it was in his office, and I was there for a business meeting. So, most of us have unless we just let him deal with this with his family over the past year, which is a profit. This is Carla Udy, his longtime D.C. fundraiser, and she's been with him through both presidential campaigns. And this is Dave Barry and his wife. Dave is a close personal friend with John McCain. Traveled a lot with him in the bus for both campaigns.
And now comes the setup for you to come down and pay your final respects. At 2 p.m. is what we said. That's when things will start to open up. Around 12, if you were going to park at the Arizona State Fairgrounds, that's when they will start busing people over. That's when we can really expect a lot of activity and people beginning to line up.
We'd like to hear from Joe Dana and our political insider, Bram Resnick, who have been outside the Capitol this morning. Gentlemen, what's the scene out there like there now? On the inside, obviously very somber.
Yeah, a couple observations, and I want Bram to obviously talk about some of the things you noticed, because you know John McCain over the years covering so much. But so poignant, I thought, that John Kyle talked about John McCain believing in American institutions. You know, he brought up specifically his fight against corruption of money in politics. He brought up Vladimir Putin. He brought up torture. And he also said no one understood where and how to use American power better than John McCain. And I thought that was quite the compliment from John Kyle, who worked with him over the last couple of decades. Something else I noticed, you may not have seen on camera, you saw a line of Vietnam veterans standing on the side there in the black vests, those signature patches that represent that generation. You know, to them, John McCain represented this generation. He came back with 500 other POWs, these men and women with demons and wounds of that war, and he was such an articulate, assertive, charismatic voice for them for decades, often fighting to get them the health care and the services they need. Seeing those veterans line up there, I thought, was also very touching.
To me, it was just standing here, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 feet away from Cindy McCain, flanked by her sons, Jack and Jimmy, and the entire family. You know, this is a great American man, and this is a great American family. If you looked real close, you saw a diverse family, you saw a blended family, and John and Cindy held that all together over the years. Doug spoke earlier about Jimmy and Jack's military service. Jimmy's a Marine veteran of Iraq. He did see really hard fighting. Jack is an active duty Navy helicopter pilot. I think the larger point there is John McCain never mentioned their service at all. You might hear other politicians refer to their children's service, and you hear it quite often. John McCain never did. He never wanted to trade on that, I think because of his heritage. He knew how precious that was. You just don't trade on military service.
Yeah, we're seeing images now of the procession when it did arrive here at the Capitol. Governor Doug Ducey, some very fitting words. He says, "We were privileged to have John McCain fighting for us, privileged to run into him at a ball game or a Starbucks." And he said when he traveled outside Arizona, I thought the governor made an interesting comparison there. He said people would talk about two things, the Grand Canyon and John McCain. He said it's hard to imagine Arizona without either of them. He recalled one of his last conversations with Senator McCain, which I thought was some interesting insight because we hadn't really heard what they discussed up until that moment. And he said Senator McCain made a joke. He said, "My biggest challenge right now is deciding whether or not to run again for president in 2022. Governor Ducey fittingly said, dying was not in his plan. John McCain was a fighter, and he called on us to fight with him.
And he compared him to the Grand Canyon, a national monument who was truly always there. I want to just provide a little more color on the service. It was Father Edward Reese who presided, and he will be at 2 more of the McCain Memorial services over the next several days. He's better known to us here in Phoenix as Eddie Reese. He was, for 20 years, the president of Brophy College Prep. That's the prep school, the Catholic Jesuit prep school that Jimmy and Jack attended. Both of the McCain's daughters, Bridget and Megan, are Xavier girls. They graduated from Xavier. McCain liked to hire young Xavier women for his staff. It is interesting, much of the ceremonies you're going to see over the next few days are going to have a real Brophy feel to them, just because the McCains, that was a big part of their life, even though they are not Catholic. It's really interesting. And one more thing about Father Reese, he was called, I'm told, by 2 people to the senator's bedside sometime in the spring, late spring, after he'd had surgery. If you recall, he had surgery for diverticulitis. Father Reese is now the president of a Jesuit high school in prep school in San Francisco, and Senator McCain called him to his bedside. Wow. He wanted to talk to Father Reese.
Also worth noting that members of the Navy were here in uniform saluting Senator McCain, and for them particularly, you know, Senator McCain means so much. This is someone who was born on a naval base way back in 1936, someone who was tortured for the uniform that he wore, and someone who in many ways represented, well, a Navy family and had this unique legacy as well. So we saw them, and I thought it was nice to know that as soon as the procession went inside, all of those veterans, the members of the military, quickly were also brought in so that they could, in some form or another, whether, I don't know if it was in person or on video, but they were able to also watch and experience this, because this is as much about, I think, those service members as anyone.
It really is. It is all about service. We keep hearing that theme echoed. And Doug Ducey also reminded us John McCain moved to Arizona at the age of 40 or 45.
Right.
It is clear he came here with the intention of running for office. There's no doubt about that. But in many ways, I moved here at about that time. I can relate. There are so many of us who moved here. I mean, you look at what John McCain moved to at that time, a state with about 2 million people, a Phoenix with about 750,000 people, relatively small place. Today, 7 million Arizona, 4 million in Phoenix. We're the 6th largest metro. He is part of that growth, and you look around, he is responsible for many of the landmarks we have here. Luke Air Force Base. Fair to say, he saved Luke Air Force Base. Yeah. And he had his hand in so many other things that we see.
And he had to earn respect as a transplant, right? Adopting Arizona. Grant Woods tells the story of the former Attorney General who ended up working so closely with Senator McCain. The first time he met him, he said before he walked into that room, he was very skeptical. He thought, this is a carpetbagger. This is someone who wants to take advantage of an opportunity and call himself an Arizonan. And he said after a few minutes of sitting with Senator McCain, hearing him discuss some of the issues, and you know how adept he is at being able to intelligently talk about important issues in this country, and just sort of soaking in the charisma of Senator McCain, he said he walked out, he was sold.
And that carpetbagger line became famous in his first campaign when one of his opponents accused him of being a carpetbagger. Right. And John McCain, who had the quickest wit, I think, of anybody I've ever met, he shot back, well, you know, the longest I've ever lived in any one place was Hanoi. Yeah. And that pretty much put that to rest. And today, here we are celebrating a carpetbagger who's, like many of us, moved here from somewhere else and who leaves this world as a national monument.
Interesting that former Representative Jim Colby was part of the ceremony laying the wreath. He had a unique spot in Senator McCain's career. You know, Colby in the mid-90s, he came out publicly as gay, and the two of them were very close. And later, Representative Colby, I should say, he said that John McCain was a strong support for him during that time. In fact, he said, in Colby's words, he was intensely loyal to people he liked. He was intensely loyal to me. Before Jim Colby went public, he had a private conversation with McCain, who gave him a hug, told him, "We are friends. I've got your back," essentially.
And one side of John McCain you don't see, but early on, one of his former aides told me when he won the Senate seat that Barry Goldwater once held in 1986, he said, "We are going to visit every town in this state. I'm going to talk to everybody, book it," and it starts with a Thanksgiving parade. I think it may have been in Winslow or Kingman, and sure enough, they were there on Thanksgiving 1986 saying hi to everybody. And just recently, former Mayor Scott Smith of Mesa ran for governor in 2014. He posted this on Facebook about a time John McCain called him out of the blue. I just want to read some of it to you. Scott Smith's father, George Smith, had just died. He was a well-known Mesa school superintendent. Scott Smith said, "While the dialogue was wonderful, I was most surprised that he called at all. You see, at the time of my father's passing, I was in the political junk heap. Yesterday's news, a throwaway item. I was no longer a mayor, having left office 9 months before my father died." You know, nevertheless, contrary to the common belief about politicians, John McCain still cared. He will never forget that. And there are countless other examples of John McCain just calling people up out of the blue. A former Senate president here, Steve Pierce. John McCain called out of the blue. Steve Pierce had lost his son in a tragic car accident. John McCain just called to check in and see how they were doing.
He took genuine interest in people, whether it's an intern at our news station who talked about being able to talk with them and meet with them. He would discuss important foreign policy issues in a room, and this intern saying, I felt so important, right? I mean, no one treated me like that, let alone the senator with the stature of John McCain. I think that was important. And
can I add one thing?
Yeah.
Before we get too sappy here, because John McCain would hate this,
okay.
As somebody else said, he also fired another intern on Sunday Square Off.
Oh, one of ours.
One of ours. It was a mock firing. I think it was kidding. That intern will never forget that moment either.
There are those moments as well. I thought it was interesting when Jeff Flake gave this beautiful benediction to think about sort of this era coming to a close of John McCain and Jeff Flake. These are two senators in this country, in this era, who have been so unique. And when Senator Kyle mentioned the belief in American institutions, these are two who were willing to speak out, often against the establishment in these last couple of years, who truly felt American institutions are at risk.
Yeah. And this is, I spoke earlier, this is a moment for all of us in Arizona. But it's also a moment for our country, and not necessarily about two men. And you know who I'm talking about, John McCain and President Trump, and the McCain family does not want to be about those two men, this to be about those two men. But it is about what America is, what the idea of America stands for. John McCain stands for a very particular kind of America. We saw that on display here today. Institutional, respecting those institutions, a way of doing things. Clearly there is a different view of America on the other side, and that's what hangs in the balance right now, and in many ways that's what these next 5 days will come to represent for many people.
Come to represent for many people, and then, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but obviously then in the days and weeks to come, that is why many are wondering who will end up, replacing. Will they be someone more in line of the Republican support of the president?
I just want to cut in. Right now you're watching Cindy McCain video from earlier of John McCain's widow, Cindy McCain, kissing his casket. Boy.
He means a lot to you, not just as some politician you covered.
No, my wife once said to me, you owe John McCain your career, just like Doug Cole said earlier. All these staffers who really owe him their career. I can attest to that. And just to cut in, we now have Meghan McCain video from earlier of Meghan McCain at the casket. And as been said many times, Meghan McCain, she's a young, successful woman, but truly what we would all call daddy's girl. I looked at reams of video getting ready for this moment, and one of them that sticks with me is a 2-year-old Meghan McCain the morning after her father won the Senate race, grabbing his mic away as he's being interviewed by a TV reporter. A sign of things to come, I suppose.
I want to end, though, with this. Reporters aren't supposed to get emotional talking about the people they cover who are the elected officials.
And don't let anybody know this.
but really, Bram, I mean, what is it that causes you to feel this tug?
It's many things. It's what he stands for, what his family stands for. I have a sense of history. I love history. He loved history. I used to wait for his summer reading recommendations every summer. And frankly, he's one of those politicians you wish you could have talked to about anything other than politics. He was that smart, and that's something that falls by the wayside. Yeah. John McCain,
you're right,
was brilliant.
Yep.
So there's that. And there's also, we all have, our own families. My father has a somewhat similar story, not nearly as elevated, but I see that, an echo of that in John McCain.
Guys, we'll send it back to you.
I had the pleasure of anchoring Sunday with Bram. Mm-hmm. I wish, Bram, we could have put the commercial break on the air, because Bram has so much insight and so much love for this man, covering him closely for 15 years. It's unbelievable. So, Bram, thank you so much for sharing with us a little bit about
You can see the emotion starting to seep through the cracks of not only everyone that was there at the Rotunda today, but even just the reporters or the military, the active military who were there. I mean, you could start to see it in their faces. That it's that human sense of finality that this is something that we've been expecting, something we've been dreading for quite some time. But the reality's not the same until there's that flag-draped casket in the Capitol.
I don't think it hit any of us. I mean, all of us just lost our breath there when Cindy McCain came up and kissed the casket. You're right. We've been talking about this for a year, since the diagnosis. I mean, I had an uncle-in-law who passed away from this exact thing, glioblastoma, and took him in 8 months. So you knew what was going to happen. But now that it's here and it's real, it makes it a little bit more difficult to handle, and boy, a lot more emotional.
We know a lot of you watching at home have been impacted in some way, shape, or form by the career and the service of Senator John McCain. And if you'd like to go out and pay your respects, you'll have the opportunity to do so from 2 p.m. until the last person leaves tonight.
Right.
Right now, we're going to send it out to Mike Gonzalez, who is outside the Capitol as well. Mike, are there people starting to gather out there?
Yeah, the crowd is starting to gather just a little bit. I'm at 17th and Jefferson, obviously in front of the Capitol, and you guys talked about the emotion a little bit. There was a TV screen playing with what was going on inside the Capitol building, and just normal folks coming up from outside these government buildings, taking pictures, taking videos, shedding tears. I talked to them, you know, and it was a diverse cross-section of folks as well. We're talking blacks, whites, Hispanics were out there. I talked to Democrats, Republicans, but they all sort of shared that same thing that Bram was saying. There's just something about the senator that united people and what he stood for. So I do want to bring in Antonio Mejia really quickly, who was part of the press pool, and interestingly enough, they let you guys go by the casket. What was that like?
Yeah, well, I'll start off by saying, Mike, that it was completely unexpected. I know that they had us in this room for the press. It was on the 3rd level right near the rotunda. Yeah. And we had 2 choices. It was either stay in that press room and be able to live tweet or take our notes from our laptops, or step out in the rotunda area and watch the service from the 3rd floor, but we could only take notes. So no cell phones, no pictures, none of that. And it wasn't until towards the end of the service they're telling us we need to get our stuff, hurry up, because they're going to escort us back out. So we're all kind of just like getting our stuff quickly, getting in line, ready to be escorted out. And it was along those lines that they told us, members of the media, that they were going to allow us to go and pay our respects to Senator McCain and view the casket. I didn't catch that part. So here I am being escorted out. We're being walked down the stairs, and we make it up to where Senator McCain's casket is. It caught me off guard, unexpected for me, but I realized, holy cow, this is once in a lifetime opportunity. Literally, it's the first funeral that I cover that's like this, so I did not expect this. It was pretty incredible in the sense that you could feel the reverence, you could feel the respect that was there, even on behalf of members of the media for Senator McCain. So
you sort of witnessed history. Was that the feeling?
Yes, definitely. I know that in our newsroom we've talked about, you know, covering this and the respect, and also the opportunity to be able to be part of this kind of history. So definitely, you know, you feel that, you're going through it, and you get that opportunity to also, as a person, an individual Arizona citizen, to pay your respects to Senator McCain in person.
Well, we appreciate your reporting from inside the rotunda. And just to wrap things up, guys, so from 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. is when the viewing, that's sort of the official time, but the folks from the McCain camp say, you know what, if you are standing at that door at 8 o'clock and there is a long line out there, they are going to give you that opportunity to pay your respects to Senator McCain. Right now, they're over at the fairgrounds if you want a place to park. There's some parking to the north and south, but I would suggest that you go to the fairgrounds and they'll bus you in and then bus you back. For now, Mike Gonzalez reporting live at the Capitol. We'll send it back into you guys.
Yeah, it just gets a little too complicated with all the streets that are closed down. Makes it easier just straight there at the fairgrounds.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, we'd like to send it out to Michael Dowden now, who's been patiently waiting all morning for his opportunity to share what he's been seeing. Looks like he's standing right outside that tent where we said was set up earlier for people to come out and pay their respects. Michael, what's the scene like out there?
Yeah, that's right, Paul. This group has actually slowly been forming since about 7 o'clock this morning. The start of the line was right here, and we've really seen it grow from first 5 people who got here around 7 o'clock to the numbers we're seeing upwards of 100 now, and we expect this line to grow more and more because right now we're not even at the point where people are busing into this area. They are literally walking here, waiting in line 4 or 5 hours to have a chance to pay their respects. And we saw the motorcade roll through, but you could tell it was an emotional moment. We saw tears here. We saw a lot of emotion talking about how John McCain will be someone you can really never replace. And one of those people, she was actually one of the first five people here, was Aaron. You were able to see that motorcade roll through. We saw you tear up. What was going through your mind when you saw McCain's casket get taken out today?
It was just powerful. I mean, I didn't expect really to cry, even though I'm an emotional person, but I just, once that motorcade came through and they took his casket into the Capitol, it was very powerful. It was just a huge statement made.
And we talked about this earlier. What does it mean to you to wait 5 hours? It's 5 hours that you'll be waiting here to see John McCain and pay your respects, like we saw his family do a little bit earlier today.
I mean, it's an honor to wait. I mean, he served our country, and it's time for us to serve him. I mean, he set this precedence that, you know, it's all about the people, and, you know, now it's time for us as the people to give back.
And what do you see from the people here? I mean, we have hundreds here right now. What has the attitude been like in line, talking to those people who are all here for the same reason?
I mean, everyone's kind of in the same kind of mindset. You know, he gave everything for us, and now it's time to give to him. At first, it was a pretty happy mood around here, and then once that motorcade, it was just silence. It was like I could hear crickets and whatnot, but it was just like the mood became somber, and everyone just felt like the power that he had, that it's like now it's our time to take that power. And
well, thank you so much. And are you excited, of course, to go in there around 2 o'clock today?
Yes, I am. I'm very excited. It's such an honor to be doing this.
Well, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. And remember that you'll be able to do the same thing. The doors will open at 2 o'clock. Like we said, you can park at the fairgrounds. There's a tent here with shade. There's also plenty of water as well if you need it. And we will be able to have a little bit more. And we're going to talk one quick little question for you.
Yes, sir.
We talked to you earlier. You're a veteran. What does it mean for you to actually be here today?
To be here, it's like heaven. And let me explain that. Many people will have a problem with that, but it's my service, my duty, and my honor to stand here and pay my respects to the late, great Senator John McCain. As a veteran of 20 years, combat veteran, someone who's fought for this country and who literally believes in humanity and civility, there's no other place I could be. I'm in his state. That's the way I see it. Not he's in my state, let me go see. He made a name for himself. 60 plus years of service. And at the end of the day, that's what I always tell people. Produce and serve. And that's exactly what Senator John McCain did.
Well, I couldn't say it better. Thank you so much for your time. And again, you will have that chance, of course, later on today. Sending it back to you guys in the studio.
That might be the soundbite of the day. That might be exactly how we sum all of this up, from people, everyday people, veterans who care so much about Senator John McCain are going out there to pay their respects. So here is exactly what's going to be happening today. 2 o'clock is when they're going to open those doors. We have been, telling you other ways that you can kind of get down there. Sounds like the best option is to be parking at the Arizona State Fairgrounds. They'll begin to start busing people over right around noon. You can see there's already a bit of a line, and it is hot. 140 degrees is what they're expecting today. Jimmy Q has said bring water. An umbrella would be a great option in case there isn't room underneath that tent. You're going to be sitting out there for a long time. If you go, go, of course, but be smart about it.
A couple of notes, too. No firearms allowed at the viewing.
Right.
Everyone is subject to security screening. There's a pretty heavy security presence out there.
Yes.
No cameras. You will not be allowed to take pictures inside the rotunda.
Small bags.
Yeah, you can bring a small bag. Can't operate a drone out there either, if that was something you were intending on doing. And this is just the first of 5 days of memorial services for John McCain. We hope you can join us tomorrow morning at about the same time, around 9 a.m. We'll be back here live, bringing you coverage of his service coming up at North Phoenix Baptist Church.
Happening today right here on 12 News at 2 o'clock. We're going to have another special show for you. That's when they open up the doors. We're going to be live out there talking to more people who have been waiting in line for hours to get their opportunity to pay their final respects to the senator. It's going to be a very special day because today is really about you. Today is really about Arizona, for you at home to pay your final respects to the man who has led our country for 6 terms as a senator.
Thank you for trusting 12 News with this breaking news coverage of Senator John McCain's memorial service at the Arizona State Capitol. We'll leave you with one last look at the motorcade, the hearse containing the casket of Senator John McCain outside of the state capitol this morning.